All right, reaction to Ken Starr, and of course his association with Brett Kavanaugh, the president's Supreme Court pick here, and about investigations that can veer out of control. Those on the right and left say that's the natural order of things, whether we like them or not. So maybe it's the process that unnerves us. Anyway, I've got GOP pollster Lee Carter back with us, Democratic strategist Rochelle Ritchie, Fox News contributor Kat Timpf. Kat, what do you think of basically what Ken Starr is saying? Yeah, my own investigation did veer a little bit far from real estate transactions with the Clintons, ultimately, as we know, into other matters. But that's the way this stuff goes. Deal.
It is the way that this stuff goes. I think it's okay to be upset about it. I think that this one has gotten a little more intense than other ones have in the past. But I also do think that it's an important investigation. I think that it's important. We have to remember that what it really is supposed to be about is finding out about how the Russians attempted to interfere or did interfere in our elections and how to stop it from happening in the future. The real important issue here is protecting the integrity of our election system, and everyone in America should stand behind that goal.
Rochelle, the association with Ken Starr could be either pro or con for Brett Kavanaugh. It's just going to add to the issues that they're going to get into in that confirmation process, right?
Well, look, I think that the Democrats are going to have an issue with Brett Kavanaugh regardless of anything, just because they are in fear of Roe v. Wade being turned over. And I think what people have to keep in mind when we're having this discussion about abortion is that in order for the Supreme Court to overturn anything, they first have to have a case. It is not going to be Kavanaugh going into his office and writing void on top of Roe v. Wade. He actually, first of all, the Supreme Court, like I said, they have to have a case. Are they even going to take that case, or are they going to send it back to the state? And I think that what a lot of Democrats fail to realize is that if Roe v. Wade is overturned, it's going to be the state lawmakers that are determining the reproductive rights of women. So
switch to the Catholicism argument that Ken Starr raised with Brett Kavanaugh. I raised with him, I should say. He said it shouldn't be an issue. Our forefathers didn't make it an issue. Democrats didn't make it an issue with John Kennedy when he was running as a Catholic candidate for president of the United States. But it is what it is. What do you think?
You know, look, I actually, Ken Starr, I think, made a really good point. We are in a country of religious freedom. We are, we are supposed to accept all sorts of backgrounds. Everyone's, I mean, that's what our country was founded on, for crying out loud. So to suggest that it's an issue that he's a Catholic, I think is preposterous. If he was Muslim and we were talking about that, the left would be absolutely outraged. So,
but wasn't that one of the issues that Amy Barrett, the Notre Dame judge, or she was a former professor there, that she was considered so right to life that it actually hurt her?
Look, I think if you can make the case that someone can put their personal beliefs aside and say, my job here is to look at the Constitution. My job isn't necessarily to be guided by my faith. Now, there are some people who say that my faith is what guides my work. And so you have to look at that. If you think that it is going to influence, bleed over. But the job of the justice, the Supreme Court justice, is to follow the letter of the Constitution. And I think that Kavanaugh has proven that he can do that. And I think if you look back and you see some of the things that some of the rulings that he's had, if you look at what he made a decision that actually allowed somebody to have an abortion. And so you can see that he is clearly able to separate both his faith from what the letter of the law says. And so I think the fact that people are outraged, or this hysteria that everything is going to go back to 1850, I think is what Hillary Clinton said, I think it's extremist. Now, that said, that kind of rhetoric does energize people. It adds fuel to the debate. And so I think that kind of stuff has to happen. I think people need to pay attention to this. If that's what it takes right now for people to get out there and say, this is what I feel, this is what's most important to me, then I'm all for it, because, we don't even have half of Americans voting necessarily in the midterms. Let's get people energized, engaged in the issues, but let's hope that they dig a little bit deeper and don't just say at the surface and say, he's definitely going back.
But gone are the days where we had judges approve 90 plus to whatever. Those days are just gone. If this guy gets through, it will be by the skin of his teeth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everything is super hyper partisan now. It's not that they're trying to work together to achieve a common goal of the country. Both sides really are just trying to further what they want to do and take down the other side. It's so political, and it really doesn't make room for a lot of Americans, particularly young people such as myself. A lot of us are independent. A lot of us don't have a particular allegiance to one party or the other.
It just gets a little much.
I think that's a lot of the reason why people aren't going out and voting, because they don't really see themselves represented.
Rochelle?
Yeah, I think that's very frustrating. I can definitely agree with Kat on that. There is no middle ground. You're either left or you're right, and there's nowhere in the middle. And I think that when we're talking about Kavanaugh, I mean, honestly, people have to educate themselves on the process, and they have to educate themselves on the history of the Supreme Court.
Ladies, thank you very, very much. I know we switched gears on that, but I thought there was a lot of interesting comments within the Ken Starr interview that warranted this. In the meantime, the father of Parkland shooting victim, who's on a mission to make sure we have no more victims. After this.